Joining us now, she's in her third season as head coach at Arizona. Of course, a four-time first-team All-American, only one of six players to ever be a four-time All-American, only one of two players to do it as a first-team All-American four times. Of course, has led the team to the World Series 2 seasons ago. I speak of our good friend on the show, head coach Caitlin Lowe, joining us here on In the Circle. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, Happy New Year. I'm curious. Now, this is your third season as head coach. Obviously, it's been a roller coaster, if you will, highs and lows through the first 2 seasons, ups and downs. What have you learned through all of it that you didn't know when you started?
I learned a lot about myself. I think I've learned a lot about what matters to not just me, but us as a staff. I've learned just what's kind of important, what I put value on, and a lot of it hasn't changed. But I do think that I've found myself more each year that we go along, and as always, we're adapting with each new team, with each new clientele that we have. So just learning about myself in this game and bettering ourselves as a staff every year.
I looked at last year. I think one thing that got kind of lost is you had a young roster, and we'll talk now. It kind of will pay off. I think this year you got a lot of returning. But talk about that. It's been an interesting roster the last couple of years because I think Pete got lost in the shuffle. You've kind of had to make adjustments on the fly with the kind of some youngsters that maybe play when they weren't ready to play, things like that. It's talk about that adjustment as a coach where you've had injuries, which has also been a big factor. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that you cannot control that have happened. How challenging, how much has that been a challenge to learn that about, hey, there's just things that are going to happen you can't control?
Well, I think, as far as being young, I think you can look at it two ways. It can be a threat or an opportunity. And for us, the young kids that got to grow in this system and be starters right away, to me, that does nothing but help them and help them faster in their careers. It's going to help us as a team this year, just because that freshman class last year had so much playing time, and they were in roles that they might have not been in. So just to see them perform in pressure situations and have, high quality conference experiment or experience and all of that, to me, it's just going to help us in the future. So yeah, does it mean we kind of have to grow up really fast? Yes, absolutely. But they did have, a junior class last year and a senior class this year, to really show them the ropes. And I'm also really excited about our freshmen this year and young talent that comes in. And you always kind of want to see that. You want to see the freshmen take on big roles right away and kind of step in. And yeah, it's a very different vibe going into this year, just because I almost feel like we were like half and half new, half returning last year. And this year we lost pretty much one role player starter. So yeah, it's a different vibe. And the freshmen come in and they kind of fall in line right away and have kind of taken on their own identity too. So different vibes, but anytime you go through something tough like that, you have a choice. You can let it break you or let it make you stronger. And I think this is a group that's going to let them make them stronger.
I spoke about your accolades. You're a four-time All-American, first-team All-American all 4 years. You're an Olympian. How, you've been on the staff for a long time prior to being the head coach. How long did it take you to learn? Because I've heard from many different coaches, former great players, they said that one of the hardest things they had to learn on the fly when they got into coaching is learning that not every player is going to basically be at the same pace learning or have the same skill set that you might have, that you were as a player. That every player has a different speed of learning. Every player has a different, talent, if you will, and it may be in a different pace. Some are faster than others, and you have to adapt to that. How long did it take you to learn that?
My first year as an assistant. I think right away you jump in and, Coach Kendra was always so good with adapting to basically the clientele he had every year, the team he had every year. And I don't think it was necessarily talent, but even just learning styles and the way people show up. And, there's going to be people, and I was a very serious, my teammates would joke about it all the time. I was very serious, and they always used to say it was like shark mode, like get out of her way, and just a different type of vibe. And then there's people like Coach Lapp, who's going to come in and be lighthearted and have a smile on her face. But is she equally as intense as I am? Absolutely. She shows it in different ways. So that first year as an assistant, though, I think you want to come in and you want to like make everything better right away, right? You want to just help everyone. And it's just everyone's at their own pace, and if they're not ready to receive information yet, then it's not going to happen. And I think just being there when those doors open for them being ready to receive, that's huge. And just learning, who needs the pat on the back, who needs to be kicked in the butt a little bit. And I think knowing people and knowing your people specifically is a really big deal. So I learned that really, really early on as an assistant. And I think one thing that we've always done here is start the fall, letting them show us what they can do. You recruited really good players into your program, so you shouldn't be, day one changing a bunch of things. Yeah, you're showing them your way. But at the same time, you recruited really good players. And then I think once you develop that, once you sit there and you observe and you learn, then you're willing and you're capable and you're equipped to step in and, and help them with certain areas of their game. And I think that's trust too. It's a big deal to gain that trust before you kind of dive in like that.
You got some new faces on your coaching staff. You've got Kristen Conrad now running your pitching staff, and then you've got obviously Coach Josh Bloomer added to the staff coming over from South Carolina. Just talk about the process of bringing those two in, part of an expanded staff, which everybody in softball has as well. How much of an adjustment has that been to have extra coaches now on that staff full time?
So many different things. I mean, I could not be more proud of us as a coaching, just like, group for making the decision to add the extra coach. I think it's necessary. I think it was necessary in baseball. You look at our lifestyle, recruiting wise, being on the field, like everything coaching involves, and we needed that extra body. I think everyone can agree to that. And recruiting wise, it's been game changing to have kind of people out in every which way. And, I love what Christian's done with the pitching staff this year. He's a workhorse and he's in here all the time. Sometimes I have to kick him out of the office and say, go home. He's finding that balance, but he's done, great things. I'm excited to see what the spring looks like with a year under his belt and him getting his feet wet, especially at this level every single day. And Coach Bloomer it's been an awesome mix of just the experience that he has, from the travel ball level to a high level in, multiple conferences, and what he kind of brings to the table. And I'm a big proponent of like, I don't want everyone to just agree with me. I want people to come in here and help us grow as a staff. And I think it's been really cool to have those perspectives of people who have are not played. Well, some right played, because Christian did play, but coming in and just bringing different perspectives. And, Christian's had a lot of national team experience too, which has been cool. And both of them, which has been awesome to see, are just lifelong learners of this game. They don't think they have it all together or know everything. They're constantly out there and trying to better their game too. So, with anything, it's been an adjustment as far as what does our new dynamic look like. So I think that's not lost on a lot of teams across the country is, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? How are we going to function? How are we going to make this happen in the spring? So we did spend weeks, getting to know each other as a staff, kind of grasping onto different learning styles, and just figuring out what makes us the best version of ourselves to then showcase to the team. So definitely a learning curve, but at the same time, I'm really excited to see what it looks like come February.
With Coach Bloomer in particular, I'm curious, what is his role defined as on the staff, and how does that adapt to you? Because I'm thinking from an offensive standpoint, both of you have an offensive background. So how does that work as far as this staff and this expanded staff? Because now you have more options as far as delegating certain responsibilities.
Well, so I think when I went through the interview process, hitting was like my baby, right? So, but the thing I loved about when Coach Candrea was here is we tackled it together. I think, some people were going to grasp onto him and what he was saying, and some people were going to grasp onto what I was saying, and it was interchangeable and a great working relationship. And I think the most important thing when I went through the interview process was that I still wanted to have a say, a mark, and just all of that. But I did want, our hitters to have a day-to-day person that was solely, and this is the coolest thing about adding another coach, is someone that can solely be focused on that part of the game, which is so huge. So, when he comes into the office, he is thinking about hitting. He's not worried necessarily about, and this is great for him too, defense, like lap sitting in there and obsessing over the defense. And we've got Christian over here obsessing about the pitching, and it allows me to kind of dip into different areas that I necessarily just haven't had the time for. So to me, it's been a great working relationship. Do we disagree on things? Absolutely. Do we agree on things? Absolutely. But that's the coolest thing, is we're growing together in this. And I think, not having too big of an ego to say like, oh, this is my thing. You never want someone on staff like that. So we pick each other's brains a lot. He does a great job of developing the weekly routine, and he's got some great ideas for scouting, and just happy to have him on staff, and happy to have someone dedicated to that, so that when I step in, it feels like a collaboration and not just, taking over that whole portion, which it's tough to do. I mean, even the head coaches who are solely pitching coaches, it's a lot, it's a lot on a plate. So I think just this extra staff member, I can't say enough about it, but yeah, just really excited for what he's going to bring to the table too this year.
Has that been an easy adjustment for you from that adjustment, or has that been something that you've had to get used to? Because, we've talked, I mean, you love hitting, you love coaching hitting there.
I
You got
do.
somebody that can help you that, and you have other responsibilities, as most head coaches now do in softball in today's day and age. So has that been an easy adjustment for you personally, or has that been something you've had to adjust?
It's been an adjustment, but at the same time, I can't just explain enough how much it's freed me up to really dedicate a lot of time to certain areas that I didn't feel like, I could dedicate to. And it's so funny. It's like being a mom, right? Like you always feel like something's being sacrificed because your time and energy is being spent in one space. So, for me, it allowed me to work with certain hitters that I could dive into a little bit more, and not, necessarily feel like I had to cover it all because it was taken care of. So I think for me, it's actually been a little bit refreshing to know that it's handled. If I have a busy day, it's handled. And if I can dive in now, wow, they get to kind of, jump in with both of us. And I think, he's great about listening to what I have to say as far as, the success of our hitters and what they've grasped onto in the past. So it's kind of this beautiful blend, at least I'm hoping, we'll see when it comes to season, but beautiful blend of like, what can we do new, but also grasp onto what's worked in the past. So yeah, I just think, for me, refreshing, and it's been exciting to have a new perspective too, of like a different way to explain things, or a different way to just visualize what's going on. And the scouting help's going to be unbelievable, for me to sit here and do, look at all of the opposing pitchers for every single team in a 16 tournament. And it's been great to be able to pass that on to somebody and say, okay, let's tackle this together.
When it comes to the players, because I've talked to many coaches, and when they've come into new places, and there's always been a mix. Some want to know every information in intel about the players they're inheriting. Some don't want to know, and some head coaches, when they hire assistants, don't want them to know everything because they want a clean slate, basically. Where are you on that with Coach Bloomer on the offensive side, with Coach Conrad's pitching, as far as how much do they want to know about the players they have, but how much do they just want to find out for themselves by watching the players with themselves? Where's that balancing act between, hey, give me all the information you know about this player, versus I want to find out about this player I'm with my own eyes?
Well, I think as far as the day to day and the nitty gritty, they did a lot of that on their own. We did sit down and we did a SWOT analysis, for ourselves as a staff. We did it for our team. And so it was I loved it actually, because we were half new staff, right? Half returning staff. And it was a perspective of a SWOT analysis from inside the circle and outside the circle. So we kind of wanted to know their perspective for what they thought about our team from an outsider's perspective. And they kind of got to hear like where some of those things were coming from, or what it really was like on the day-to-day basis. So I think they got a general overview. Bloomer's someone that I've chatted with at conventions and met him a while ago. He's actually who I recruited Ali Skaggs from. So I've known him for quite a long time. So he's someone that I talk hitting with anyway. It's not, he knew about our team. He follows Ali's career and all that stuff. And Christian has been a good friend of Coach Laps for a long time. So, they are people who know our program anyway. So it was kind of nice to hear their perspective and get our perspective and just kind of start from there, but also start fresh, I guess, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it definitely does. Offensively, we'll start with that. A lot of returners. Let me ask you this first. You have so many returners from last year. So I'm curious, is there a chip on the shoulder? Is there an extra motivation from the returners with being left out last year? Is that something that gets brought up as part of motivation? Is that like in the distance and doesn't get brought up? What's the approach on that with this player? Because I would imagine there's a lot of pride and a lot of, hey, we want to prove something coming over. But is that overblown? Is that used?
So it's been tricky, right? It's been tricky in the sense that a lot of the returners do feel that. They do feel the not wanting to be in the same position, wanting to level up, wanting to be better. And a lot of, I feel like having a couple of new staff members has kind of helped that, because we've had, some new stuff implemented that, okay, like let's level up in these areas, and it's gotten better. And at the same time, you have a freshman class who didn't experience that. So, on the other hand, it's like they're just ready to go, ready to win, like tell me what to do. Whereas the other group, they don't want it to be like this. They don't want it to be like this. So it's gotten to the point where, okay, let's stop talking about what we don't want to do and let's start talking about what we do want to do. And it's a lot easier to follow someone that says, hey, come with me because we're going to the World Series and we're going to play in the last game of the season and this, and this. And not someone who says, we don't want to stay at home in May and June. So I think it's been a lot about the words that we use and the vision that we're kind of setting forth. So we tried, I think a lot of this fall has been about that balance. And, I know it's changed the way that a lot of returners, I think, go about their work, go about their business and use their voice, quite frankly, because a lot of the physical tools were there last year in a lot of returners, and it's just, how do we hit pretty well last year, but we didn't win enough games. We played really good defense last year, but we didn't win games. So just, how that's translated and not just worrying about ourselves, but kind of worrying about the group as a whole.
Let's talk about Ali Skaggs. You mentioned her, player who helps you on all aspects of the game. You hit 14 homers last year, but also as your Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. Speak to her and her caliber of a player, because I would imagine she's one of your leaders you lean on.
Yeah, I just can't say enough about her as a softball player, but as a person, I think more so as a person. She shows up every single day, ready to work, but ready to kind of bring people with her, which has been, the biggest thing. My challenge to her was always to use her voice. She always had the right things to say. And, when it doesn't look right, and she does a great job of lifting people up. And she's had a hard time with, when it doesn't look right, kind of being that person to kick someone in the butt or like get them going. And she's done that this fall. So I've been very proud of the progress in that regard for her. And, as with all seniors, you want them to, let their game kind of take care of itself and just be free when they're playing their senior year. And She's put in all the work. I mean, from her freshman year when she didn't see the field a lot to every single off-season moment, December to the summer, all of the time. And, she gets what she gets out of what she puts into this game. And I think that's the biggest thing is she gives and gives and gives. And you can see, she's not a great player just on a whim. She is a great player because she's built herself into one and a great person at that.
Got so many players returning. You got the Devin Nets returning, Carly Scoopin, who hit 337, 10 homers in only 34 games, which kind of gets forgotten about that. I'll never forget. I spoke to Coach Kendra, and it turned out it was his last year when you all came down to Florida, and he raved about Scoopin, about having one of the best power swings he's ever had, which speaks volumes to considering the players that he's coached. But just talk about those players returning, what you've seen from them, and probably that confidence from the success, like an Olivia DiNardo hitting 382 last year, 7 homers, Blake 365. I'm reading these numbers. There's got to be a lot of confidence within there with some of the success that each individual had last year.
Yes, I think a lot of confidence, but a lot of wanting to be better, honestly. And that's the coolest part. And I think, Scoop's someone I'm very, very proud of just how she's come into this year. She feels so very settled into who she is as a player. And it's freeing her up to do things with the team that she hasn't been able to do in the past. She's always been one of, if not the hardest worker on the team, just showing up every single day and worrying about her game. But, I don't think she realizes how much people on this team respect her and her voice. So, and that's kind of been us for the last couple of years is like, okay, so who's going to be the one in the tough times to kind of step up and say, this is what we're doing, or follow me, and you see it every year on the World Series teams. There's always a couple people that are just like, hop on my back, let's go. And, I think that's the piece that's been missing, and it's something she's completely capable of. And, she should be able to let her skills shine for themselves, but be there in the moments when the team needs that voice of just reason. And she's right here, as all the great players are. She doesn't get too high. She doesn't get too low. She's very matter of fact, goes about her business, and is a calming force in the infield for us. So I'm very excited for her year this year. I think she's done great things with Coach Bloomer too. And hopefully level up her game even more. And she was on a tear right before she got hurt last year, and it was an unfortunate mistake. But at the same time, I got to talk to her, and she was pretty low, but I was like, man, when that happens, you don't really realize how great of a perspective you get from sitting on the bench. Like you don't realize it until way after the fact. You get this coach's perspective, eagle-eye view of the game. And I just think that's going to help her this season. As much as it was terrible last year and the timing was the worst, and everyone could feel it on the team, she's going to have that perspective this year of what it looks like from that view. And I think that's something that's, Alyssa Palomino had it her freshman year when she tore her ACL. It was like, man, I don't think you realize this can be great for you. And it's so hard to see in the moment. And trust me, I've torn my ACL. I've been out. I've watched a lot of games from the bench. But that perspective, it's just, if you use it the right way, it really helps you in your career and in life as well.
You have 5 freshmen on the roster and a transfer in Miranda Stoddard, which we'll talk about when we talk about the pitching staff. But just talk about the 5 freshmen and how you see them contributing to a veteran team.
Man, I've been super impressed with just the maturity. I think this year and last year, to be honest, the maturity of the freshmen just being able to step in and go about their business every single day. And, the game sped up, but being able to kind of, get a few weeks under their belt and be good to go. We added 2 freshman pitchers who I think are going to have big roles on this team, and Ryan Maddox and Brooke Mannon. And let me tell you, they could not be more opposite of each other. I mean, Brooke is 5'10", 5'11", right-handed. She's a harder thrower. She is a competitor. I think that's probably where they share the same DNA, is they're both competitors. And Ryan is about 5'3", maybe, I don't know, 5'3", left-handed spinner, just executes the game, and she competes and can read swings, and the smarts she just has about pitching is kind of her level. So they complement each other really well. And I think that they will pair together really well. I think they both just the competitive energy that Devin Nets kind of brings, I think I'm seeing in more of our pitching staff. So that's been super, super refreshing. And, Reagan Shockey actually led off for us all fall. She is a super speedy, mostly slapper, but she has pop too. So it's going to be, I'm not sure if she's going to swing away a hard slap at this point yet, but super fast. But really she has this coaching brain, right? So, Scoop has it, Skaggs has it. It's, you can tell they're just like future coaches in the making in my mind. They just have this way about them where nothing gets too big, right? So she stepped into center field for most of the game. She can play anywhere in the outfield. She can play first base too, which is what she did for the end of her travel ball career. So I'm very excited for her future. I think if she keeps working the way she is, she's going to have a great career here. So I like the confidence and the way she sets the tone as well at the top of the lineup. You always kind of need that steady swagger, and I think we've had that for quite a few years. So I'm excited for her to kind of start the fire there at the top. And so 3 of them came from the same travel ball team. And Emily is a freshman catcher that we have, which I would say, if we are, I think we have more depth than last year, but catching is, you never want to have too little of it. And Emily's done a great job. We got her late, and just stepping in and being so composed for a freshman catcher. And let me tell you, for a freshman catcher to like step out onto the field, middle of the field, use their voice amongst a senior class, like her whole infield is a senior class, except for shortstop, right? So like you're looking at Carly Scoopin, at Devin, at Blaze over at third, at Skaggs, and you're just like, I don't know, to me, like being able to use your voice in that's so telling. And I'm like, the sky is the limit for her. So, offensively, we're getting there every single day, and she did a lot of growing in that regard, and but a great teammate and a winner. And I think that's, for our freshman class is a really big deal. And, Zadie, we have an outfielder that came in. We got her late too, quick kid from Tucson, played for, Kelly Fowler. So found out about her from Kenzie, and she came on late and went about her business 4 for 4 in the fall games, and a role player for us, but just a great teammate, and just really excited about all of them as people. And I know I say that a lot, but it just makes such a difference as a coach to have people that step in and not just, they just don't handle themselves on the field. They handle themselves off the field as well. So just really excited for all of their futures, and they're ready, and they're diehard Wildcats, which has been really cool to see that too.
Devin Nets, who could do it at 13 homers last year, 40 RBIs, led you with 16 wins in the circle. How much of the pitching load do you think Nets will have? Because you probably had to overwork. You really probably didn't have a lot of choices at the end last year. You probably used her more than you would have liked. Now, it sounds like with the 2 freshmen you have alluded to, and then obviously Stoddard, that you feel you have more depth on the pitching, and that maybe lessens the load for Nets. Is that the goal?
Way more depth, and yes, that is 100% the goal. I think we put an unfair amount of work on her last year. And she was the one that wanted the ball all of the time, and as a coach, it's such a tricky balance of like being able to take care of those people at the same time. And, I think one of the coolest things Christian has brought to the table is just this, the way he thinks about the game and how he can, attack how many outs we're going to get with a certain pitcher, how many outs we're going to get when we bring in the next one, and why this look to this look makes the most sense, and why someone might need to be prepared to come in for one hitter and be out which is kind of a baseball mentality, which I think is what our game is kind of trending towards right now. And so he's been great in that aspect. And I think we have a lot of people that want the ball right now, which is very cool to see. And freshmen, you're going to want to, see what they do in these first few tournament weeks, right? Whether they get thrown into the fire and they, what do they look like? Are they going to get hit around a little bit and then be able to recover? Because that's just what our game is now. We have great hitting all across the country in our game. And, this space right here between the ears is way more powerful than people think until they get up at this level and kind of get knocked to the ground a bit and just decide how to recover from there. So I'm excited about the depth. I'm excited about kind of the wide range of styles too. We have a couple lefties on the staff, both who do different things. And we've got someone that's high velo now, which is cool. So our range goes and, up, down, side to side, like we've got it all. So it's just a matter of how we piece that together as a staff to win games. And I think, when you have competed that way for so long, I think having a pitching staff that buys into that plan is very important because they're all aces, right? Like we all recruit aces from teams. We don't recruit role players. So I just think, being able to share that is a mentality. And I think one of the coolest things that I've seen this fall is our pitchers are like this right now. Let's see if they stay like that. I hope they stay like that for years and years and years. And they just love being around each other. You go in the weight room and they're all on one darn rack together. I'm like, you guys want to spread out? No, we don't. Okay, you get your work done over here. So it's just been cool to see, like they are bought into not just what they're doing, but Christian sends out a weekly plan of what everyone's doing. So now if I'm Ryan, I'm looking at Brooke's workload and I can have her back and like, hey, how did that go today? And just little things here and there. And I think, that's cool to see what it can do for Devin. So we'll see. But, I think she's been cool to kind of, see her last year and hoping that, you can be that same person, but we'll hopefully be able to keep her fresh and ready to go for all those moments we need her.
How's Miranda Stoddard adjusted to life at Arizona and what she will bring to the table?
She's great. And, she came in and wanted to do it all, had taken a year off. So it was tricky, and she was very honest. She's like, I have taken a year off and we're like, okay, we're going to ease you back into this thing. And she's a competitor. So she wanted to, immediately hit, play third base, pitch, get as many innings as possible. But her body said no from the beginning. So it was easing her into that moment. And, she's been great over at the corner too, and has done great things with Lap offensively, getting better and better. So, I think she's someone that is going to be a role player when we need her to come in and show her very specific look. She's gained a whole lot of velo since she's been here, which has been nice to see. But she had to get her legs underneath her. And, anybody who's stepped away from this game for an extended period of time knows that it's frustrating and hard work to get back into shape when you know what in shape looks like, when you know what in shape feels like. So she had to go through that process. And in the meantime, still being thrown in inter squad scrimmages, which is not an easy thing to do against our offense. So I give her all the credit in the world. She just got, she took her hits in the fall, but I think she's going to come back in January and feel a little bit refreshed just because she's not starting from square one.
How do you feel about the defense going in? Because we obviously pitchers get a lot of focus, but the defense can help the pitching staff as well. Obviously, you're one of the great defensive players ever, so I'm curious, how do you feel about your defense? I would imagine pretty good considering you have so many players, position players back. How comfortable do you feel about your defense?
I'm just I can't say enough about Lap and what she's done with the defense, just being able to like solely focus in and hone in on that. Our infield is so much fun to watch and practice. And, I was a practice player. So like I nerd out at everything practice, and the daily reps are where, I find out if someone's going to be good or not in a sustained season. And I think we have the potential to be very good defensively. And I think, the coolest thing or something I'm most excited about is being able to hopefully pitch into our defense and kind of have that predetermined plan of, being able to cheat a little bit, even just to get in the right positions. And I think Reagan's going to level up our outfield a little bit. I think that, our seniors in the infield have used their voice and are commanding the field. And I think they've started to realize how important it is to develop that relationship, not just as a group themselves, but with the pitching staff incorporated, so that it's kind of one well-oiled machine. So, and Lap does a great job of that as well. So super confident about where we're going. And I think, as long as we dig in January and just focus on getting better and better, I think we're going to be in good shape.
Talk about your schedule. You will be hosting among the highlights. You'll be hosting North Texas, Long Beach State. Arkansas comes in, which I would imagine is a return from you coming over to play at their place, kind of a home and home. Omaha won the Summit League. You've got Indiana and Marshall in the same tournament. In fact, I don't know if this was your brainchild or it just worked out, but you actually have Indiana and Marshall playing each other in your tournament, which I love because that's Coach Stanton against her former school and her former player now in Morgan Zirkle. Again, I don't know if that's your master plan. You like to make up marquee. Props to you on that. Then you go to Alabama, which is that part of the return for them because they played at your tournament a few years back. South Alabama's in that tournament. And then you take a midweek to Miami, who's won the MAC and Louisville. So just tell me about your philosophy with that schedule.
Well, we're playing a really high RPI schedule this year, and I think that's important. I think it's important to be challenged with good teams at home because that's what happens in conference. I think it's really important to play in a hostile environment. We try to hit all of those things. Going to Alabama is super important for us. They pack the house every single time we've been there, playing somewhere where not one person, maybe you have a few parents cheering for you, is really valuable. But yeah, just being able, the mastermind was, I think Lap used the fact that Indiana was coming to get then Marshall to come. And I think it's, it was a beautifully executed plan, but two really, really great teams. And I don't think we have, we're going to be challenged every single step of the way until we get to conference, then all through conference. So we're excited about the challenge of it. I think this team is ready for it. I think, it will be nice to kind of get our feet wet at home and then go on the road. And we do some of our best bonding, when we're away for extended periods of time. So I'm kind of excited to be gone for spring break, play Alabama, and then head over to Louisville, which is actually a homecoming for Ali Skaggs, if you didn't know. So that is going to be kind of, her homecoming, and we'll hopefully get a big crowd for her during the midweek games there before we start conference. So really excited about the challenge of it. Arkansas is a return trip and Alabama is a return trip, and they'll, I think Alabama has also scheduled to be back at our place next year. So I love that partnership. It's always a good game, always a good series. So, and we usually get to play each of those teams twice. We got to play Arkansas 3 times last year. So that was nice as well to get us ready for conference.
I'm all for masterminding, storyline matchups. So y'all as a staff, bravo. We in the media love that. And I would imagine that you have that means with the homecoming in Louisville, then your tour guide is going to be in the obvious who's the tour guide.
Right. Well, and now Bloomer too, and that
wasn't
really a mastermind plan. That just kind of worked out that we were going back to his hometown too. But I think I walked in his office and I was like, okay, well, let's, can you be in charge of setting up what we're going to do there? And he's like, you need to talk to my wife. So he's like, I'll be planning on how to beat opponents. So I'm like, okay, let me talk to Erin. So yeah, I think the Skaggs fam and we're just excited to send her back to her roots because, she's a Kentucky kid, a 502 kid converted to a 520 kid. So just really excited for her, especially in her senior year.
Obviously, it's no secret this is the last year of the Pac-12. And one of the topics that'll be is you're going to go into the Big 12 next year.
Mhm.
I'm curious, how will that affect your non-conference scheduling as a at all? Because I've talked to many coaches that have gone to different conferences, and they said one of the challenges right away is, oh, we're in a bigger conference. It's those dates disappear. So how much will that affect, if at all, your non-conference schedule with this conference change here in the future? Because I don't know why, but you have Arizona and UCLA have become a popular topic when it comes to the scheduling from various sports. Have talked about softball in particular. But let me first ask you about the scheduling future, how that's affected with the change.
Well, as far as the dates, we're not sure yet. I think it's going to look very similar, though, as far as the amount of weeks that we're going in conference. So I don't think that part will change. I do know that we have scheduled quite a few Pac-12 teams at our home tournaments pre-conference next year. So right now we're kind of in the process of our 2025 scheduling. This is kind of the timeline. It starts, at the end of 2023, summer of 2023 into 2024. So we've scheduled quite a few of them, and that part has been nice because now we have more options to come to our tournaments and really great competition to come to our tournaments. So excited about that leading into conference. And yeah, I think the day that it happened, everybody was sad, upset, kind of, we all grew up watching. Well, I grew up watching the Pac-10, and it was the Pac-10 when I was in it. But I'm sad to see it go, and I hope we can kind of, still maintain some of those rivalries because I think it's important to college softball. But also, I think everybody's excited to go into this new conference, to go into the Big 12, and really get to work on that. So yeah, I think right away, I think Alistair texted me first maybe, and it was like, okay, well, we're going to, start scheduling each other. And I just think it's important. I think it's, there last year, I think was one of the most competitive Pac-12 softball conferences that it's been. It was so competitive. And just to see it, it's going to be competitive again this year, but to see it kind of go after it was so strong, that's the major bummer for me, at the peak of what it looked like, just conference wide. So we really want to maintain those really good conference series and, be able to bring them into the tournaments as well.
You mentioned it's been fascinating for me from the outside scene. Like people like Chip Kelly, Tommy Lloyd, Jed Fish, Mick Cronin have all been asked about UCLA and their Arizona and their respective sports, whether they're going to play or not. And what's funny is either some of them have brought it up, like Chip Kelly and I think Tommy may have brought it up, or it just happens to somebody brings it up where softball gets thrown into the conversation during that chat, which kind of blows my mind away. All right, like it's and I'll be fully honest. One of the questions we've gotten in our inbox, because when people are like, seeing that we're having all these coaches on, one of the most popular questions people have asked, like, what do you know about the Arizona UCLA? Are they going to play? What's going to happen? What is that like to see that many people care that much about that matchup to the point where it's transcended the sport? Like you got basketball coaches and football coaches bringing it up and being addressed about it. That's how much people care. What's that like to hear all that feedback?
Well, I think we all care. I mean, think about just growing up in this game, growing up in softball, like that is what you watched. I remember the first true college game I fell in love watching was UCLA-Arizona in the World Series. It was the championship. It was Allison Johnson back in the day. And it was, every year. And it's so funny. It was always ironic to me in my 4 years in school, we won my junior, senior year. UCLA won my freshman, sophomore year. We never played each other at the World Series, not once. And it like blows my mind because that's what we all grew up, and I had a lot of friends on UCLA, I played with a lot of them. And we grew up watching that, that conference series. And it was crazy. It was, we went a while where it was like, whoever won the series wasn't going to win the World Series. The other team was going to win the World Series. And we just been through so many waves of great players and sustained success. And, back when I was in travel ball, they were getting all the best recruits too. And everyone wanted to go there and one or the other, so it's sad to see that it's not part of a conference, but I think it's important. And we've created a whole lot of rivalries, right? I mean, throughout the entire conference, that I don't want to see the matchups go away. So it's just important to make sure that our game still has that. And, I think Chip Kelly talked a lot about, how could football be separate so that we could sustain that. And it was just cool to see the appreciation for coaching staffs across the country for that matchup. Is just, it just says a lot about the former players that played in them and the coaching staffs that coach in them. And they will be, go down in history as some of the greatest and hopefully continue to be some of the greatest.
Does it make it easier? Like yourself, you mentioned Jessica Allister, Kelly everybody that's played you've all played in the conference, in the Pac-12. You all have that bond. You also are alums of your respective programs that you're coaching. Does that make it easier too, that you're all kind of going through the similar things and understand some things are beyond your control? Does that make it easier through this unique transition that's going on in college athletics really as a whole?
I don't know if it makes it easier, but we definitely have people to talk to about it. And I know there were a lot of people upset from the get-go, and not upset, that's the wrong, just disappointed for, and just sad for what the history has been, and not being able to kind of continue that legacy. And, we had the first Pac-12 tournament here, which I thought was a huge, huge success and a big deal for our conference. And the next year we're all going in different directions. So it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was really, really tough. And I think, the coolest thing is just our game is growing into so many different, areas, into so many different rivalries. So that part is cool. And at the same time, just paying a lot of respect to what the Pac-12 has been is just, it's been crazy. It's been a sustained conference and a conference of excellence, a conference of champions for so many years. And, we'll never stop talking about it. And I think, we're excited to join the Big 12, but at the same time, it is pretty crazy to see what's happened this year. But Alistair and, we've all kind of talked about it, and, it all kind of hit it all at once. I think she was on vacation, rightfully so, after recruiting, and the way we all kind of found out about it. And so, that was a rough couple of weeks of uncertainty, but now everybody's, gung-ho for the conference that they're in and ready to attack the new chapter.
Like I said, Big 12 is going to be a strong league once you get there next year. And UCF and Arizona will be in the same league, which means we'll be in the same league. My question is, can you put in a good word to Kenzie Fowler for her to allow me to use her press box?
I will put in a good word. I know some people.
All right. I love to work with her. So, we can, whatever. I've told her that, like, hey, whatever we got to do, we can be all, in the same, family there. That's all I'm saying.
She does it all for us in this athletic department. So she is a good person to know. She's not just doing those games on TV. She is our hype video queen, our media presence, our creative mind. She's doing a lot for us. Social media guru, all of
versatility.
She wears a lot of different hats.
Yes, she does. So it puts me to shame. I totally get it. Two last things. You mentioned Pac-12 tournament. Last year was the inaugural one. You got to host it. How did you feel about it as a whole, as far as having that tournament? You'll have it this year. It'll be in Stanford. Obviously, when you go to the Big 12, they have a conference tournament, so it's something you'll be used to. But what did you think of it now after so many years of not having one?
I don't think we knew what we were missing out on until we had it. I think it's a postseason environment. It's good team after good team, and you don't know who you're going to play, and you got to be prepped for everyone, and you got to show up. And, it was fantastic. And it was cool for me to see, not just in our game, but, games who, Utah playing UCLA, and like those games were packed, and I think we have in Tucson, we're lucky that we have softball fans in general, and not just for, solely for Arizona games. So the environment was fantastic. The fans were awesome. The the competitiveness in the games was top notch, as you can see. And I think it's a great prep for postseason. So, I think it's really, really important to have, especially leading into Selection Sunday. And excited for Stanford to have it this year, and talk about a heck of a roster that they have returning, and just really excited for this game to keep growing. And I know it won't continue as the Pac-12 conference, but we're really excited about the teams that we have in it this year.
Could be a legendary year for the league. And then in a few years, big news there obviously is softball will be back in the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028, which would be the 20-year anniversary of your Olympic experience in 08. How time flies, Coach. I mean, what happened here? I watched you in that Olympics. I mean, you mentioned earlier you watched the Pac-10. I watched the Pac-10 too.
You went there. I didn't even think about that as being the 20 years. That's crazy. I'm just so excited for it to be back where it belongs. I grew up, idolizing, just absolutely idolizing the players on Team USA. And I was lucky enough that my dad, sat me down and had softball exposure in front of me all the time. And, that was back when games weren't all on TV all the time, and you had to go show up live in person. And I don't know, to me, and for it to be LA, like, I'm just trying to get some tickets. So can hook me up. I want to be their biggest fan, and hopefully we have some Wildcats in it. And just super excited because that stage is unlike anything you can imagine. And, one of my favorite moments at the Olympics wasn't even on the field. It was, they kind of stage the athletes in this auditorium, and you don't even get to see opening ceremonies, right? You're just kind of like sitting there waiting for your name to be called, waiting for your country to be called. And so we don't get to see anything. And then, we start to line up in the tunnel, and it's like a football tunnel, and everybody's kind of getting hyped. And then it's kind of like silent. And so, it's the first time you're kind of like, okay, I'm next to like Michael Phelps and Kobe Bryant and like all these people, but we're all in red, white, and blue, right? And we're here to compete. And so it's silent. And then all of a sudden somebody just started chanting USA, and the whole tunnel was chanting. And I like still get goosebumps. It was like, I mean, just to be so proud and represent something that's so much more than yourself, and it's so much bigger. And to kind of see everyone come together like that, it was the coolest experience. So I'm just, we've gone through a couple generations who haven't necessarily gotten to see that or have that dream. And I think that it's just really important when you're, showing up to the field every day to have that vision of what you want to do. Excuse me. So, couldn't be more excited, and excited to see some Wildcats do it, excited to cheer them on, excited to get my tickets. I'll be first in line. So, just really excited for them.
You got me fired up. I mean, I can tell in your voice, that still means a lot to you, even to this day. That's something that's going to stay with you. It's going to be remembered for the rest of your life. Totally.
Core memory, right?
Yes. By the way, you haven't aged if it makes you feel better. You the same you did like in 08. So,
it's because I'm far away, I think.
I don't know about all that. Well, last question, we'll let you go. As you get going, before you know it, February's here, the season starts. What are a couple keys or questions that maybe you have that you're intrigued to find out by only playing other opponents, that you're looking forward to find out about this team that could set the tone for 2024?
I think that coming out right out of the chute, it's going to be how well our pieces work together, if that makes sense. I think we're doing a great job of developing each category, right? Like our hitters are developing, our pitching's developing, our defense is developing, all of it, right? But like to see that kind of mesh well together is going to be super important. How well does our pitching staff gel with the rest of our defense to create a more powerful defense? And to me, it's going to be how we come together as a team, because I think we have a crazy amount of individual competitors. And, right now the process has been, how are we going to gel? So I think the biggest thing I'm going to see from the beginning is how well those pieces kind of feed off each other in those first couple weeks. And, how well our pitching gives momentum to our defense, how well our defense gives momentum to our offense. And those are the things that I like to see develop, more than just coming out and raking or striking people out. And it's really just how we do that as a team. So I'm just really excited to see that. And as a staff as well.
We're excited, and I know a lot of fans will be excited to see you all before you know it. Season will get going, but I know it's a busy time for you. So, Coach, always appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and just talking softball and all different topics. You've always been honest and candor with your opinions there, and we always appreciate you. You know that. You're always one of our favorites. Thanks for always talking to us, and good luck this year, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, thank you, man. And thanks for what you do for this game.